All right, team. Welcome back to Plastic Surgery Untold, the greatest podcast in the world as voted by us. In our last episode, we had such a good time with Megan Parkin that we invited her back again today. Today, we're going to talk about Sculptra, as Gilberto, Austin's most beautiful man, likes to refer to the hidden or forgotten filler, actually.
Well,
forgotten?
Maybe, it's one that hasn't had as much time in the spotlight as it probably should.
But not as new as some people would think. But I think as people have really gotten into building their own collagen, doing those type of things, I think it's really revamped. I think we've gotten a little bit better with it, which has had it, and then some new uses, if you will, that we'll get into. But before we get into all that goodness, let's get caught up with what everybody's doing. Celebrity, kick us off. What's been going on in your life? Anything new, exciting? Any big talks you've done?
No big talks recently, but I have one coming up this week. I'm going to be speaking about pain management and plastics for the Austin Society of Plastic Surgeons. So pretty excited about that. And talk about some ERAS or enhanced recovery after surgery techniques, some low narcotic techniques that we use, things that you and I actually came up with as far as medications for pre-op and post-op, so these patients are not going home on a million narcotic medications.
And I think you've also even been setting up a training for anesthesia providers on blocks.
I have, yeah. So later in June, all the guys from our group and then a couple other guys that I know from around town that are anesthesia providers, and also maybe other couple of plastic surgeons are going to come as well. We're going to learn how to do some ultrasound blocks that we haven't done, that are new or novel techniques to blocks that we already know how to do. Should be pretty interesting.
Pretty cool, because technology's gotten so much better. It used to be that some of these things were a little cumbersome, mostly done in hospitals because of the technology, the resources needed to do them. Now some of the technology has gotten so good that there's ultrasound probes that are basically the size of your iPhone that Bluetooth
wireless
into your iPhone.
They're wireless. Pop them out of your pocket. Do the block. It pops up on my iPhone or on a little iPad. I'm able to do the block within 5 minutes of getting a patient off to sleep, and doesn't slow down surgery. These patients have full, basically, nerve blockade to that area that we're cutting or making an incision on, so that patient never experiences the pain from the get-go. And I think that's the real goal of preemptive analgesia.
And then that also decreases the narcotics you have to give people for a systemic stuff, and that's what causes the hangover feeling the next day, the nausea, the vomiting, those things, which typically actually tend to be some of the biggest complaints people have after anesthesia.
100%. Could not agree more. And that's why, that became such a hot topic for me in anesthesia was getting patients feeling better, not only immediately after surgery, but for the next 2 or 3 days. And I know that the stuff that we've done has decrease the amount of calls that you're getting in the middle of the night. Oh, I'm nauseous. I feel terrible. We're not getting those calls anymore. It's been a huge win in our book.
It'll be exciting. So people stay tuned for a couple podcasts down the road after some of these adventures.
Absolutely. And I'll try to get some stuff on social for next week at the talk and hopefully at the block class too. And we can post some of that.
And they can follow you at
Celebrity Anesthesia, or see me on my wife's at Your Trendy Therapist.
Shameless early 9,000. Gilbert, Austin's most beautiful man. What's going on with you? Anything new, exciting?
I spent the weekend in Dallas last weekend. I went to my goddaughter's birthday. She turned 4. So it was a lot of fun.
I was wondering why there were so many lonely women in Austin last weekend, but now it all makes sense.
Yeah.
All makes sense.
They weren't so lonely in Dallas, though.
No.
But no, it was fun. We spent the day at this trampoline park. I guess it's like a big gymnasium. They've got like trampolines all over the place, like up against the wall, and
that's cool.
You just bounce around.
Fun.
These kids were going crazy, like just jumping up and down, like it was exhausting for me to see them.
Did you participate?
No, I didn't.
No.
I need to take Winston to a little trampoline park like that. Get his little butt tired.
Yeah, absolutely. Run him around.
Yeah, but it was fun. It was a good time.
Megan, what about you? Austin's new denim queen. What's going on? Anything new, exciting?
Well, so I'm getting ready to go out to New York soon. Obviously, I wasn't able to attend Fashion Week. It was all virtual, so I've missed the city, and I have a good friend that moved out there. And the exciting part is actually I'm going to be meeting with a luxury purse dealer that I'm going to be possibly getting some inventory from for my store.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That is awesome. But so, because on our last episode, you were talking about this pop-up shop. Is it just a weekend pop shop, or you're going to be open all the time? This is your store.
Yeah, so down on South Congress, like they do this thing every Sunday where they have a bunch of vendors come out and you can set up shop and you basically do a bunch of vintage stuff, a bunch of handmade things. So they kind of did it, I think, 2 weekends ago, and then they're gearing up to kind of continue it through the summer. So I'm going to be doing that hopefully every other weekend, kind of depending on how it goes and if I'm in town and everything. But for now, I'm going to keep it online and then do the pop-up things when I can.
You'll have to keep us posted.
Loved you yesterday?
Yes. Loved you yesterday.
Much like what Gilbert says to all the ladies. Boom, boom, boom. You're welcome. Well, since you guys asked, thank you guys for asking. Yeah, our office is going great. As some of you saw, we've been working away. We've been in for a couple months, but actually doing some finishing touches on the lobby. So having some kind of wooden shelves put in, some finishing touches, if you will. As anyone who's done construction and renovations, never goes quite as smooth as you would hope, dream. Megan keeps promising to come help paint, but have yet to see her come, so we'll keep you posted. We'll post something if she ever shows up. But we actually were going to get this incredible like zebra tile put up in our lobby and one down in the hall, and they had sent me all these pictures of where they were going to cut it, how they were going to do it. And then I get a call like 3 hours later, hey, and I was like, oh, that was quick, man. You guys got this installed. They're like, well, about that. You know the wood that we use to carry the tile? I was like, yeah. He's like, that broke. I was like, oh. Well, what happened to the tile? He's like, oh, that broke too. I was like, okay.
That broke as well.
So
cool.
in 3 months, we'll have that portion up. But,
Awesome.
But the wood and everything else in the lobby should be done hopefully in the next day or two. So
Did you decide to stay with the zebra tile? You didn't switch it out for something else?
What should I switch it out for?
I don't know.
Carrera marble, dude. What is this?
Marble?
Oh yeah, man.
Oh, I don't know. I guess I'm open to suggestions.
Ritz Carlton treatment, baby.
Yeah.
Wow factor.
Well, let's get into it here. Let's talk a little bit about Sculptra, and I think Gilberto is going to take this over a little bit, and maybe tell us what Sculptra is and why it's so unique.
Yeah. So I called this the forgotten filler ? Because it has been around for a long time, but I feel like the hyaluronic acid fillers have gotten a lot of the attention in the last like 10-15 years or so. But Sculptra, it's a little different in that it's actually a material that is used in the same like absorbable suture type stuff. So it's a very similar to absorbable suture material. And basically the way it is utilized is it uses this biostimulatory effect where it kind of stimulates the body's own collagen to kind of fill in some of these areas where there is some volume loss and some volume deficits. So it's like your body using its own collagen to kind of fill in these areas where people might be a little gaunt looking or have some areas where they could use a little bit of enhancement. But it's the suture material that kind of stimulates that.
How is that different from the HA filler, the hyaluronic acid?
Yeah, so hyaluronic acid is something that our body makes naturally, and what we're doing when we're injecting hyaluronic acid filler is we're basically trying to replenish lost volume and kind of create support. So we're adding something into the tissue that is analogous to what our body already makes, but the Sculptra product actually stimulates the body's own collagen.
Got it.
So
Cool.
that's the main difference between the two. Hyaluronic acid is also kind of like a gel, whereas Sculptra is actually more of like an aqueous solution, just like very, very watery. You use a lot of saline to basically reconstitute the product. It comes as like a freeze-dried powder, and you use saline to basically reconstitute the product before you inject it.
Kind of interesting. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, I feel like the Sculptra kind of roller coaster went because it's been around for a long time. It's actually used for other medical issues when people lost volume in their face because of medications and other stuff, and that's actually where it got developed and first got its approval. And then people were like, "Oh, this works great in this. Why not use it in aesthetics to restore that volume?" and then some of these large companies like Allergan, I think, brought out their HAs, and so they became super popular. One, because of marketing. Two, I think because of the I want satisfaction right now. And the HAs, basically, you can walk out, you look great, it's done, it's set, and other than the possibility of a little bruising or swelling, people are set and done. Sculptra is great, but I think you got to be a little bit more patient. You also got to plan ahead of time, and that's maybe where I think it lost a little bit of steam, and then has kind of resurfaced is people have made a turn back towards very natural products. I think people have, collagen has become a thing. I think also as people are looking for, definitely for patients who are looking for more of a natural look, a slow progression, because the Sculptra, and correct me if I'm wrong here, goes on a little bit of a cycle. And so one, it's not typically something we just pull off the shelf. It is off the shelf, but we actually mix it a couple days in advance because that helps people get a very smooth result. In our practice, we like to do at least several days in advance, but you can do up to as little as 4 hours in advance. There's plus and minuses, but not to get into the weeds of that. But when you inject people, because you mix it with all this saline, which is basically a salt water that's sterile, so we pay a ton for it. You mix it into the powder, and then you can fill some of these areas. I think it's great for areas that are very hollow, areas that need a little bit of tweaking. You can actually do a lot of cool things with it. But what happens is you look full, you look great, you walk out, you're like, oh, best product ever. And then over the next week, you look back to where you were before the treatment ever happened, which is different than the HAs because your body's absorbed all the water basically. And then over the next 6 to 8 weeks, you start to build that collagen. And so people who just want to really stimulate, want to get a refill of their own collagen, this is a great product, but you got to plan ahead of time. You got to weather the storm. And I think maybe that's where some of the transition has been. So this is great. If you're going to do it, got to plan ahead of time.
Right. Yeah, 100%. And it's also a series of treatments. Usually it's you come in, you get a treatment done. Like Johnny said, after a week or so, you lose a lot of that volume from the water that your body reabsorbs, and then your body starts to develop that collagen. But about 4 to 6 weeks after that initial treatment, you come in and get another treatment done. It's usually done in a series of about 3 treatments. So you kind of really have to plan ahead, like he said.
I tend to do Sculptra more in patients I've had long relationships with because typically this isn't something that people just come off the street for. This is typically a nice thing when you're trying to do some fine tuning, you're trying to restore some certain volume. This is a patient who you're going to be with over the long term because to do the full set takes a while, but the benefit is that the product lasts for a long time. You don't get that overdone, overly fake look. A lot of people love the fact that it's building their own collagen, which also helps some of the skin, has a lot of other benefits for you too. And so I think that's why I think we've realized some of the benefits it has and why it's become so popular, or maybe become repopularization.
Yeah. And I think it, like you said, it has its pros and its cons. Like, it takes a little bit longer to get the same effect, but in my opinion, I think there's fewer potential risks, fewer potential side effects, unlike the HA fillers, we've talked about in the past where there are some potential risks that can occur. This is mostly water. So, you don't really have to worry about, compromising any vessels in the face or anything like that because it's mostly water. It has its benefits and its detriments, I guess. It just depends on how you look at it.
Are you able to use both types? If you've had Sculptra, can you 100%. Go back to HA? Can you switch back and forth?
You can even use them interchangeably, like in the same session.
Wow.
Just depending on.
And do people tend to do that?
Depending on what their goals are,
okay.
Depending on what they're hoping to achieve and, what their financial budget is. And, there's some variables that come into play. But, you can certainly do, a session where you're doing some HA fillers in some areas of the face, Sculptra in another area of the face or the body or something. So.
And are there certain areas that are maybe more suited for Sculptra and, like, areas where it's better to build your own collagen?
So typically...
Damn, great minds think alike.
Oh, my gosh. No, it's okay. I'll just
Megan's just trying to get Craigslist ready. She's just trying to get Craigslist ready.
We might need to bring her on back, and maybe Donald can go back to being a producer.
So do we need to do a poll whether we need to eliminate Donald and bring Megan in? I mean,
we might have to do that.
I feel like Megan's questions are rather pointed, very on target.
I do like her peppering.
Also, I think you guys need some female energy in here. It's too many men in here.
Don't disagree with that statement.
Too much testosterone.
But yes, to both y'all's point, there are certain areas where it's a little bit more beneficial. I think cheeks is one area where you could get a pretty great outcome. temples is another area that a lot of people forget about. As we age, we lose a little bit of the fullness in our temples, and we kind of develop this little concavity or this little like indentation in the temple that kind of ages us a little bit. So we can use Sculptra in that area to kind of give us that youthful, round-looking face. So that's another area. But recently it's gained popularity in different parts of the body. So moving away from the face, there's other areas that it's used. You'd mentioned earlier, like in the butt. That's what a lot of people are kind of looking at now. It's a rather non-invasive or minimally invasive way of getting a little bit of lift. It's not going to give you the same Miami BBL look that Johnny can provide,
that the
BBL king can provide, but it does maybe give you a little bit of a lift.
I think that's an area, and definitely we should get to the other areas, but just so we don't skip over this, I think it's always being a little bit cautious though, and it's funny because if you didn't check out our previous episode talking about social media and Instagram and those things. While I think they're great, they also sometimes can be misleading.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you see a lot of Instagram posts about butt and Sculptra and those type of things, and the interesting thing is you see a lot of pictures of people injecting and filling that butt. You see very few before and afters 2-3 months down the road, and I think some of that is people do get a plump and so forth right away because of all the saline, and especially when you're doing for extremities, people tend to dilute it even more. And I don't disagree with that. I think there is some benefits to that, but the flip side I would tell people to be a little cautious is being careful, because you get what you pay for in terms of some of this, and unfortunately with Sculptra and butt, you can spend a ton of money and still see a very small difference. And so I in my personal practice, I like to reserve Sculptra for the butt when you're doing little touch-ups, when you're doing very targeted areas. Gilbert mentioned it. You just can't compare a tiny little vial of off-the-shelf product to 1,000 cc's of fat. And so they're just a butt implant. And so being super realistic, this is where you got to talk to your provider about what you're expecting to get, what you're trying to achieve, because I just hate for people to spend a lot of hard-earned money and not get where they want to be, and then there's kind of no going back.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, patients come in asking about it. In my practice, I just send them to you just because I know
that's what I'm talking about.
Because there's no point in me doing anything for them. I don't think that they're going to get the same level or degree of benefit or the outcome that they're looking for with Sculptra alone in the butt. Now, I could be wrong, but I just know my limitations, and I would just feel more comfortable sending them to you.
And I do think that there's a place for it. I think people who don't have any fat, people are super thin. I think when people are trying to do little touch-up stuff and they're not going into surgery, I think sometimes if people have a tiny little hip dip they're trying to fill, trying to do a little something like that, I do think there's a good place for that. But I think being super real about what you're going to get and how much product you really need, but I think just thinking about the vials versus this amount of fat tends to help put in perspective a little bit. Yeah. But I interrupted you. Keep going down the line.
I was just gonna mention a couple other locations.
Yeah, please.
So I think elbows is a really great place for Sculptra, especially as we age a little bit. The elbows tend to get a little looser. The skin gets a little loose. We start to develop.
I noticed that in celebrities' videos when he was running the other day.
Yeah.
I don't think he sunscreens his arms, and those elbows are looking a little weathered. A little weathered.
The weenus.
Yeah.
Isn't that what this is called? The weenus.
Yep, it is. So we. Never mind. I was going to say something.
Soundbite from this show.
So elbows is a great location.
Does this help his knees? Because his knees are looking a little bony too.
I was going to the knees. So for
he's got the great joggers on, so his calves look on point. We're just trying to make sure that the knees look as good as the calves for celebrity.
We have to. Yeah. Thanks,
so,
guys.
So that's another great place for it is for that loose skin around the knees, especially as we get a little older.
Yeah.
It just helps kind of bring back some of that tightness, that tautness.
I think to Megan's point, I often mix hyaluronic acid with a Sculptra because it gives people a little bit of both. One, like if somebody's doing their lips, I won't do Sculptra on the lip stuff. I feel like all hyaluronic acids are a much better product for that. And then you can do maybe some of the cheek stuff, and so you do a little bit of a mix. Also, I think it's nice when people want to see some big difference. It's going to go right away. So sometimes I'll do product throughout to do a little mid-face lift with a hyaluronic acid, and then do some either temples or kind of lower mid-face stuff with a Sculptra, so they get a little bit of both. And so that that way they feel like they can see something right away, but they also got something waiting in the bank for them a couple months down the road.
Sure.
And then they see that nice small transition. So they got a lot of treatment in one step, but they're not going to see this massive difference where people aren't going to recognize them, and it slowly transitions. That's the other little nugget that people love about Sculptra is you can get injected because it's such a gradual stuff. We even have patients a lot of times go, oh, I don't know if it worked, and they'll come in and we show them the before and after, and it's like, oh, that's a nice little difference. Because it is such a gradual difference. It's almost like when you're working out, losing weight, doing those type of things. Sometimes people tell you, hey, you're looking good.
You get used to seeing yourself, so you don't necessarily notice it, but there definitely is a difference there as it starts to work over time.
Or maybe it's their new denim pants that are making them look on point. You just don't know.
Maybe that's what I need.
That's vintage denim.
Do you do vintage denim and joggers though for celebrity? Like if you want to show off his ankles, or are those called capris? I'm not up with the logo.
Capris, yeah.
Or capris for
put me in some capris. All right, I'm in.
Denim
I'm in.
jogger. I don't know how comfortable that would be.
I don't either, but apparently the doctor has ordered it. For
maybe
me.
that should be a thing. You
Yeah.
know, get your Sculptra and get some denim joggers. You know, that would be such a. Megan, we're gonna talk off show. We're gonna think of a little Christmas special. We got 6 months to plan this,
we
but a
still
little.
need to do that little shopping challenge.
We do.
Ooh,
We
do.
Never
We
did
do.
that fell off the wagon.
Okay. But I'm getting us off. Let's get us back into Sculptra here, G. I'm distracting us.
I do have a question about
ahead.
Sculptra. What are we looking about, like longevity wise? How long is that product gonna last compared to an HA?
I feel like
or
that's
one of
from a celebrity husband question.
Oh,
because you're thinking,
that is
how often
exactly
am I
where
going to come?
that
Because
came
you're
from.
talking multiple treatments,
Yeah.
you're talking touch-ups, you're talking about mixing product. How long am I going to have to?
when your trendy therapist comes in, I need to know how much money and how
am I getting my
often am I
bang
gonna
for my buck?
Exactly.
Is this like a lease for my car, or is this like a weekend rental Airbnb?
So the studies show that it lasts longer than 2 years.
Okay.
It's a little bit undefined as far as how long that is because they stopped the study at about 26 months. But it does last longer than 2 years. So it most likely will last significantly longer than that. But that's what we have as far as like actual scientific data.
The one thing that I always have a little love-hate relationship with Sculptra, and I'd love to get your appearance to this, is I feel like the people respond a little bit differently. And I've had patients that are absolutely great responders, and they get more of a benefit than I even ever could have hoped or thought. And then people that sometimes respond a little bit less. Have you ever seen that in your practice?
Yeah, to a degree. I would agree with that, yeah.
And that's the only thing that's sometimes a little hard compared to like an HA filler, where if you get 1 cc of product, you're getting 1 cc of difference, and that kind of is what it is.
Right.
So it's a little bit of the plus minus, and I try and be super upfront with patients, and that's also too why I love to do like you had mentioned earlier, several treatments. So we may do 2 vials, 3 vials, get started, make sure they love it, make sure we're headed on the right course, and then we can do more after that, rather than just trying to dump a bunch of product in at one person. Right. I also think that if you overflood an area, you at some point you get a little bit of diminishing return, and this is why I think even with the large volume Sculptra of diluting it out more so you can get a better spread, because it has to be in contact with your good tissue. And this is where I think some of the responding comes from. If you're living a healthy lifestyle, if you're eating well, if you're doing those things, I think you're probably going to be a better responder. If you're not taking care of your body, it's going to be harder for your body to produce that collagen.
Yeah, no, I agree.
That led me to 2 questions now.
You're
very
welcome.
Curious today. Number 1, do you notice a better response in a younger patient?
That's a good question.
Or have you noticed about the same across the board?
I do think that younger people tend to respond a little bit better. Not to say that older people don't, because people typically further on in age tend to be, I think, really great Sculptra candidates. Mm-hmm. The other group that responds well because they tend to eat well, take care of themselves, and our great Sculptra are bodybuilders. Yeah. They look absolutely fabulous because they're chiseled from the neck down. The problem is when you're super, super thin from the neck down, sometimes the face gets a little overly hollow. Yeah. And this is where I love Sculptra, because sometimes the HAs, because they're a little bit thicker and stronger, they're great to lift those cheeks, to chisel that jawline, do those type of things. But sometimes if you're so thin, it's sometimes hard to make that look natural. And then especially in men, they don't always want people to notice that they had something done right away, and they just want a little bit softer, fuller look. And I think this is perfect because it's going to gradually increase over the next 2 months, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Athletes, not just bodybuilders, but people who do endurance sports and stuff that have that really thin frame. I think they do really
I
well.
appreciate you thinking at me, and look, Gilbert was looking directly at me as he was saying that. And for those of you that listen, I do like to work out. I've been walking Winston 2 or 3 times a day. We go on our 10-minute walk, so I feel like it's showing in my face. All this extra. Sometimes I have to switch hands because he's starting to pull a little bit more, so the biceps have gotten stronger. Thank you.
I thought you had a dog walking service.
Well, they take 2 of the 3, but the third one, the third walk, I do myself.
I have seen him out on the trail before.
Yep, and sometimes I got to take him all the way to the 5th floor. We ride down the elevator and take him to the little dog run thing in the building. So
There you go.
yeah, yeah, we stand in the elevator. We do. Thank you.
That's cardio.
Yeah.
Other question I had was about collagen supplementation after having Sculptra. Have you ever had a patient ask you about that, or do you think there is any benefit?
In terms
It's
of
the same question that came to mind for me.
in terms of like oral collagen supplements
or
does
powder.
that seem to benefit if you were to get the treatment?
I'll be honest, I don't know enough about oral collagen to have like a very definitive answer, but in the research that I have done, it doesn't really prove to be very effective. It doesn't prove to be very helpful. I don't think the body absorbs enough of that collagen to really make a big difference.
That's fair.
So,
I was just curious.
Yeah.
I agree because Sculptra basically works more as a local inducer of collagen. And so the other thing I don't want to send the wrong message, some of the other products do stimulate collagen along with being a filler.
Mm-hmm.
And so, someone we've talked about, Radius has been shown to create some collagen. They do some dilute mixtures as well for different areas. So there's other products that do this. So don't think that Sculptra is the only one, but Sculptra is the only one that this is its sole way of treating people and kind of a uniqueness to it.
Yeah.
There's some other products on the market that are in process of FDA approval in the United States and abroad that have some of the same things involved with them. So future episodes, stay tuned. Some stuff on the way. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
Maybe not next week, but it's a little while away. Unfortunately, things have been delayed over the last year. There's a few other products that were actually scheduled to be released last year and have been pushed back and still not. So we'll keep teasing you guys as long as we can.
Yeah. But one of the other reasons I mentioned earlier that I like Sculptra is its low risk of complications. Bruising is something that can happen just with any other filler, just because we are injecting into the tissue. And the other thing that some individuals may experience or kind of notice are like little nodules that kind of develop under the skin. And so it's really, really important that after this treatment is done, that patients massage the area. And that's one of the instructions that we give them post procedure is that they have to massage the area that was treated for 5 minutes, 5 times a day for 5 days.
Rule of fives.
Yeah, the rule of fives. And that's going to help kind of keep some of those little nodules and granulomas from forming. But other than that, for the most part, I feel like it's a pretty safe filler,
And that's why we mix the product up several days in advance in our practice, because that's actually been shown to decrease the nodule stuff. So a lot of times with Sculptra, this is one where we do like to have a consult ahead of time and be able to evaluate people and make sure they're a good candidate for it, because we do mix it up several days in advance. We want to make sure it's the right product for you. We want you to be silky smooth. Practices that are a little bit bigger, like Gilbert's, may almost have product mixed on hand.
We typically have product mixed on hand, yeah.
So sometimes there's a little bit more flexibility. When we get to the size of one Gilberto Austin's most beautiful man, maybe we'll offer those services as well.
Well, maybe so.
What other nuggets would you like to share, or questions that you have, Megan, about the beautiful Sculptra face? Sculptra sculpting the face?
Right. I guess I would just say, like, where do you see the most kind of benefit for it to be? Like, where in the face would you really like to use it?
That's a good one.
Yeah. Like I mentioned
Donald
earlier,
would not have asked that question.
Yeah, definitely.
No, he would not.
I'll put another tally in Megan's column.
Donald doesn't know that by just so you guys know, Megan was kind enough to jump in. Donald released a video game. Congratulations out to him.
Donald.
So he's making his world tour of his video game debut. I didn't really think that there was a world tour of debut like songs for video games, but he's doing it.
He's on the
Apparently
Ellen
there
Show next week or
Is
something.
he?
Yeah, I think so.
Tune in. We'll post post the information of Donald's big. I thought it was Marvy Parvich or Jerry Springer.
You are not the father.
Maybe he is. Maybe he is. So we'll let you know if Donald at Tall Gamer is actually on Jerry Springer. If he is, I hope you all wish him luck. But I'm sorry. Continue.
Actually, I think I switched my question. So
Oh,
the new
thank
one
you.
I have is,
Change
so
up.
when you're evaluating someone and you said this can take multiple treatments, can you basically tell from seeing them how much they probably will need, or is it something where they'll come in once and then they come back for a follow-up and you can kind of adjust
Yeah,
them?
that's a really good question. So what I would do is I would probably do their first treatment and have them come back so that we can see if they need to do more. Because it's a little,
Right.
like Johnny said earlier, it's a little difficult to know just how much of an effect or how great of an outcome they're going to have just with one treatment alone.
And just from a price point, they should be aware that maybe it's going to take a few treatments or depending on.
But we do both because I think that they'll come back and we'll reevaluate. But most of the time we can be pretty upfront with people, and there's a lot of people, and a lot of it has to be age dependent, how much weight you've lost. But most of the time you can be like, hey, we'll start with 2 vials, but you're likely going to be in the 4, 6,
So they
8, and
kinda
we
know what
typically
they're
give them
getting
a pretty
into.
good estimate of
Yeah.
where they're going to need to be.
Right, and that's helpful.
Yeah.
Very, very, very helpful
Yeah.
In terms of that.
Yeah, but to answer your previous question, I think that the areas that probably see the most benefit are in my opinion, probably going to be like the lower mid face area, cheek area, and maybe temples.
Okay.
Because you asked for face, so
Right.
so like for face, I think those are some good spots.
I also like it too when because this is where I think it has a nice kind of adjunct. Sometimes when people have a little bit of a weathered appearance, and you being in a derm group, you see more of this than I do. Weathered appearance to their face and those type of things. I think most of us excluding Megan, but the rest of us when we were little growing up, we got our first good sunburn of the summer, considered it good, called it done, set, and now we realize how bad those sunburns as a child were for our skin. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, the damage has been done for most of us.
Yeah.
And dermatologists are going to be in business for a long, long time to come.
Yeah.
But I do think Sculptra has some benefits in that skin texture and stuff because of these collagen properties.
Oh, absolutely.
Have
So
you seen that?
Yeah. So to your point, it doesn't just help with like the hollowness that I'm talking about, but in filling in some of these areas where there are a lot of sun-induced wrinkles and lines and stuff, or the weathered look, like you said. I think it does help replenish some of that as well to kind of soften up the appearance of a lot of those, wrinkles and furrows and stuff.
Sign me up.
I definitely think it's a great product to talk to your provider about. I think there's specific uses. Like everything, there's certain products that are better for certain areas than others. And a lot of times it just has to be individualized. Definitely if it's a product you're trying to use, not a great product if you're trying to look good in 2 or 3 weeks. Your provider's probably going to steer you towards something else. No matter what product you're using, typically tell people at least 2 weeks before, because I feel like the kiss of death is saying, hey, Gilbert, you never bruised me. And it's like, why would you say that? Why would you say that?
Knock on wood.
No, knock on wood. I mean, there's definitely a lot of people, and I know we've said this on other injectables, who come in on a Friday before a Saturday wedding, and I send them right back out, and be like, hey, not worth it, because you could have a little bruise, little bump stuff. And again, you may be someone that's never gonna bruise or bump, and
This will be
boom,
the
boom,
time.
This will
boom.
be the time,
This will be
yeah.
the time. No matter how good your injector is, bruises, things like that,
They
they can
happen.
happen.
They
They happen
happen.
to the best of us, and
Yeah.
so something to keep in mind.
Thought of another question. So I know from with HA fillers, you're supposed to not drink alcohol before. There are a few things that maybe can help. So with Sculptra, are there any things you shouldn't maybe do before you have a treatment, or anything that can impact that?
I mean, I think that's a good one is no alcohol, because alcohol thins out your skin, which increases your risk for bruising. And we mentioned that that's one of the things that can happen with Sculptra is bruising. So I wouldn't do anything that would thin your blood, like drink alcohol, take aspirin, like any vitamin E type supplements or anything like that. That's probably the main thing.
Staying away. The funny thing too is a lot of people do some supplements, and some of these off-the-shelf supplements, herbal supplements type things. Some of them actually have, they actually do have benefits, but some of the benefits are actually because they thin your blood. So sometimes being a little careful, just because something's natural doesn't mean that it won't,
Right.
predispose you to bruising and bleeding and those type of things. That's something to think about. I'm actually a fan of arnica. If you know that you're going to have some treatment, starting that a few days before, I think helps. My dad used to be on aspirin Plavix for cardiac reasons, not a great person who you would want to get off. So definitely make sure you consult with your physician if you stop some of those before your injectable procedures, because everybody's a little bit different and some people need to be on them. And definitely don't want to put yourself at risk to get fillers.
Yeah. How do you prep your patients for treatment in terms of like anesthesia?
Ooh, that's a great question. I usually say, hey, nurse, make sure that we have them numb. No, in all seriousness, I think it's something to keep somebody super comfortable for. Yeah. We typically do topical numbing cream. We do have the Pronox, which is a self-administered nitric oxide that actually helps people a little bit just take the edge off. But that's what we do.
Yeah,
people actually tolerate these procedures really well.
Would you say the level of pain?
He doesn't call me in for that.
No.
The level of pain seems to be similar with a hyaluronic acid filler and then Sculptra?
So Sculptra is a little thinner, so
Okay.
I feel like it's a little more tolerable in my opinion. HA fillers are more gel-like, so there's a little bit more viscosity to them. They're a little thicker, so I feel like patients feel that a little more.
But I also think, too, Sculptra we do in some of the areas that aren't as sensitive. Like lips, I think, tend to be the most sensitive. You know, I've never done Sculptra on the lips. Just a different product. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it. I think it's too risky.
So I think some of it has to do with the location as well. Butt tends to be a little less sensitive than like a face. You know, we have a lot of nerves on our face and so forth.
Yeah, the weenus, as Travis so eloquently put it, is a pretty easy area to treat.
I love that we're single-handedly putting celebrity anesthesia out of business.
You guys
his new business has just been shut down.
if not already, you're trying. Yes.
What other Sculptra nuggets would you like to drop on us?
What else can I tell you guys? We talked about it requiring multiple rounds of treatment. That's one that I think is really important when you are evaluating the patient and consulting with them. Just making sure that they understand this is kind of a treatment that's going to take time to get the desired effect, unlike the HA fillers that we talked about.
I just think maybe last thing for people to think about in terms of this is just realizing how many different options and ways there are to get to some of the different products. And one of the other group of patients that I've seen that have really, really liked this, definitely have patients that want and we talked about in our previous episode, they want these a little bit more exaggerated, more chiseled, cheekbones, jawline. I don't think that this is necessarily the product when people are looking for that very sharp, chiseled look. But we have a lot of patients that want to just restore a little volume. And we were talking about this when we were talking about facelifts, other stuff, just turning back and looking at pictures from a few years back. I think this is a great product because one, it starts really slow, two, you're only going to get so much benefit each one. I think people who are a little afraid of looking overly done, people noticing a huge difference right away, I think this is a great option because it just softens that look. And especially if people have lost a lot of weight, our athletes, our bodybuilders, our people who are looking for more of a natural kind of look stuff, I think this is a great option, something to talk to your provider about. The cool thing about all these different products that we've talked about is that you can really tailor your look to anything you want. And we talked about in our last episode, but bringing in some pictures and other stuff, I think helps your provider a little bit because then they can recommend the product that's best for you to help kind of get you to that look.
Yeah, and we alluded to this in the last episode too about this really being an art and a science. Like you guys have all the tools and injectables that you could possibly imagine. Now it's up to your keen artistic eye to say, hey, in this patient, what is going to look the best? What's going to give the best long-term result? How do you want to look in a year from now? How do you want to look in 6 months from now? Let's tailor this to fit your face and to fit your needs. And that's the real cool part of y'all's specialty, I think.
And Gilberto did a training for recently, and it was interesting to watch him just kind of, as he was teaching some of the injectors to go through and be like, hey, and he just kind of started top down and said, hey, here's the stuff I see, and went through it, what bothers you the most. And then, here, let me point out a few other things that I think that would make a big difference. We don't need to do all of this right now, but at least so you know. And I think a lot of patients have things in mind, but they're coming to you because they want your professional opinion. And I feel like this is where we can say, hey, here's all the stuff we can do. Here's the stuff I see. Ultimately, it's your decision of what bothers you the most. But sometimes what bothers you and what you think is the treatment may not be the same. And so this is where we're trying to at least talk it out with us. Like, hey, this is what bothers you. I get it. Here's some things I think would treat that a little bit better.
Yeah. And I think that it's important that you go to someone who, knows what they're doing. There's there's a lot of great injectors out there. There's a lot of not so great injectors out there. And it doesn't take a lot to learn how to inject. And there's unfortunately a lot of like cookie cutter type injectors that do the same thing over and over and over again. And to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, to a degree, it is an art. We are kind of, helping patients achieve their ultimate, aesthetic goals. And so you want to go to someone who's going to take all that into account.
And be there if you have a problem.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Motel 6 is probably not the best thing. Not to hate on it, it's a great motel. I love staying there. But, you just don't, want to go somewhere where they're going to be gone if you have a problem or concern. And this way that whoever's injecting you is going to be able to take care of issues, and problems are super rare. But if there is one, you want to make sure there's somebody to call.
Yeah. Exactly.
Can we maybe do a little behind the Bovie?
Yeah.
What do you got behind, little Sculptra behind the scenes, or injectable behind the scenes?
So this is what I thought was a little interesting. So Sculptra, or PLLA is what it's also known as, was initially brought to market for patients that had lipodystrophy, or lack of fullness in the face, initially for HIV and AIDS patients.
Really?
Oh, wow.
That's cool.
The little nugget behind that is that people actually lost that volume from the medications they were taking. It was a side effect from the medications, and that made them lose some of that fat, and then this restore that volume. People are like, oh, this works really well. Can we restore this volume even if I didn't get it because of the medications, and be able to enhance some of that volume? And that's why.
Yeah.
Yep, that's a great one.
Yeah.
That's a nice,
That's awesome.
nice little
I
nugget.
didn't know that.
I thought you were going to steal that from me earlier.
Nope, I didn't want to steal your nugget.
Thought about it.
How about a quote? Can we do a quote of the day?
Got a little quote right here, and I'm not like woo-woo spiritual,
No?
no.
With your tie-dye shoes?
Maybe a little, but not all that much. Anyway, this past week, it was Mary's birthday. Shout out to my wife at Your Trendy Therapist. Wish her happy
22nd birthday.
And
Happy birthday, Mary.
Yeah, she will be 29 again. And anyway, we have been trying to get reservations at this sushi place for like 6 months. Sushi bar in Austin.
Heard of it.
It's great.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
If you work at sushi bar, if you own sushi bar, can you guys please? This is a personal plea to you to please get Celebrity Anesthesia in.
That's where I was going with this. So yeah, host us. No,
You should have hit me up.
so you got an in and you didn't let me in. So the night before her birthday, I'm running errands, and I'm at an office, and I'm getting in the elevator, and I just going through time in the elevator. I'm like, let me flip open my Gmail. Flip it open. There's a reservation because we're on the wait list, and we've been notified like 30 times at this point. It finally lets me book, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the day before her birthday, this is awesome. So anyway, it ended up working out. Beautiful food. It was unbelievable. Great time.
Yeah.
Sushi was unreal. Anyway, it just made me like very thankful and appreciative. Me and Mary were talking about like things are kind of falling into place. Like it's just been a good time over the past couple of weeks. Things are going well with the business, and I was like, we need to be more grateful. We need to be more thankful, which leads me to this quote: expressing thankfulness energizes, enhances, and empowers.
Wow.
All that for that. But yeah, and Skip Pritchard said that.
That was one of the things they said at the Ritz-Carlton course is how can you empower the people around you, the people that work at your business, to provide this excellent service. So I think, stuff becomes contagious. When you're happy, when you're sending that good vibes, then you empower other people to do the same. I think it just starts rolling in the right direction.
I totally
You can
agree.
manifest a sushi reservation.
That's exactly right.
Or your denim capris.
That's all of the above.
Boom, boom,
No,
boom.
but I think when you're grateful and you're thankful and you are thankful for those people, like you said, that you work with or that work for you or whatever, it empowers them too. It makes them want to do a better job, makes you want to do a better job. So good stuff.
Good stuff.
I appreciate Megan. Thank you for filling in. Donald, you may see less and less of Donald and more of Megan. So maybe we'll do a little poll, see if that's something that the people want to see, because we want to give the people what they want.
Yeah.
Gilberto, I appreciate you hosting this episode.
Yeah, thank you.
So thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Killed it, man.
I think there's so many more cool things to come. So, and if there's specific topics you guys want to talk about, please DM us. Maybe we'll go around the room. I feel like we haven't done it a little bit. Celebrity Anesthesia at Celebrity Anesthesia.
At Celebrity Anesthesia.
At
Megan Parkin.
keep it simple.
Blue check.
Gilberto.
At Austin Aesthetic PA.
Ooh, that's a little harder, but okay.
I know.
At
Austin
Aesthetic.
Aesthetic PA.
PA.
Yeah.
Boom.
I
And
mean-
then at Austin Plastic Surgeon. Feel free to DM us, follow us, please. Follow at Plastic Surgery Untold is our Instagram. You can actually catch us on YouTube as well. And wherever you get your favorite podcast, Spotify, Pandora, iHeart. What's your favorite place to download?
Spotify.
Ooh, boom.
iTunes.
I like iTunes as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Boom.
Old fashioned.
iHeart. Let's do it. All right. Thanks for joining us. Plastic Surgery Untold, the greatest podcast in the world. We'll see you guys. Bye.